Hi everybody, and welcome back to Murder at Bedtime with me, Lyndon. I did say if ever I got a bit of time I would put out a YouTube episode, and this is one of those times. If you are a regular listener to the podcast, you know I think you are all awesome, and if this is your first time, I hope I can persuade you to stay. Murder at Bedtime is a 15 to 20 minute true crime bedtime story. No frills, waffle free. Well, until the end anyway. Where I research a case as well as I possibly can, take out all the boring bits, scrunch it all up like a scrapyard crusher, and put it out, hopefully, for your entertainment. And with that, pump up your pillows, pull up your duvet, and let's crack on with the man they couldn't hang, John Babbacombe Lee. At between 3 and 4 a.m. on the morning of the 15th of November 1884, the cook of the Glen, a picturesque thatched cottage on the beachfront at Babbacombe in Devon, Elizabeth Harris awoke to the smell of smoke. She went to the bedroom of the two maids, the elderly Neck sisters, Jane and Eliza, and awoke them. One of the sisters went to the bedroom of their employee, 68-year-old Miss Emma Keyes. Her room was on fire, but she wasn't there. As the three women made their way down the stairs, they saw the fully clothed footman, 20-year-old John Lee, emerge from his bedroom, which was on the ground floor in the pantry near the kitchen. He was fully clothed and he asked what was happening. They told him, and then they all went in search of Miss Keyes. They found her lying in the dining room, which was also on fire, and so was she. The ladies persuaded Lee to go into the room and pick her up and carry her from the room. They then put out the still smouldering Miss Keyes. The maids then told Lee to go and fetch a Mr. Gaskin from the nearby Carey Arms public house and have him bring help. In his absence, it became very apparent that this was more than an accidental fire and a lady overcome by smoke fumes. No, their employer was quite dead, and to the three ladies looking down at her, it was definitely something to do with the fact her skull had been smashed in and her throat had been cut from ear to ear, so deeply that she was almost decapitated. She also smelt very strongly of paraffin. When the police arrived and did their search of the house and collected evidence and took statements from the staff, they immediately arrested John Lee and took him away to Torquay police station for questioning. The evidence was circumstantial, to say the least, but at the subsequent inquest, which strangely wasn't in the local pub, but was held in St Mary Church Town Hall, and just 2 days after the murder, after hearing 15 witnesses who basically witnessed nothing or whose statements were hearsay, the police stated they had their man, so were not looking for anyone else. Now, it also probably didn't help his cause one iota that the Glen's cook, Elizabeth Harris, who I may have forgotten to mention was John Lee's half-sister, gave evidence that her brother had told her he was going to burn the house down after Miss Keyes had reduced his wages by sixpence. Along with the summing up by the coroner, which was thoroughly biased against Lee, it was no surprise that Miss Emma Keyes was found to be unlawfully murdered by John Lees, and he was to be tried for her murder. Thankfully, we don't do these inquests anymore, where a person is basically found guilty before he even goes to trial. So the trial was set for the 2nd of February 1885 at Exeter Guildhall. A young solicitor called Reginald Gwynne Templar was John Lee's defence lawyer. Now this was strange because he was also the victim, Miss Key's solicitor too, but apparently John Lee's parents hired him. But before the trial started, the young lawyer was taken ill and his place was taken by his brother Charles. Now, Reginald was taken to a sanatorium in Windsor where he was treated for general paralysis of the insane, brought on by tertiary syphilis, untreatable in those days, and he died in 1888 at just 29 years old. Now, but this isn't the last we will hear about Reginald Gwynne Templar. But back to the trial, where it is put to the jury that because John Lee is the only man on the premises, all the doors and windows had been locked up for the night, so it must have been an inside job. He was found fully clothed, coming out of the pantry where he slept. Blood on his sleeve had been seen by witnesses before he claimed he had cut his arm smashing a window to let smoke out. And on the evidence that his half-sister gave that he had threatened to harm Miss Keyes for reducing his wages, pointed to the fact it could be only one man. And it worked. The jury took just 40 minutes to find him guilty, and the judge sentenced him to death. John Lee's execution was planned for the 23rd of February 1885 at Exeter Prison. The scaffold to be used that day used to be in a different part of the prison, but had been moved 3 years earlier and had not been used since then. But 2 days before the date of execution, it had been thoroughly tested by the hangman, James Berry, using sandbags, and the trapdoor mechanism was found to work perfectly. On the day of the execution, John Lees was brought to the scaffold, and with his usual skill and speed, Berry the executioner strapped Lee's ankles, pulled the cap over his face, adjusted the noose, stepped back and pulled the lever, and the trapdoor jammed. Straight away, Berry and others witnessing the event tried stamping on the boards, but they wouldn't budge. After a few seconds, Lee was taken back to the condemned cell. The scaffold was inspected, and it was thought that rain may have swollen the boards, making them jam. It was suggested the carpenter should plane a bit off the edges, and then a warder hanging onto the rope stood on the boards and the lever was pulled. It worked perfectly. Once again, John Lee was brought to the scaffold and the lever pulled, and once again it jammed. They tried a third time, and when this didn't work, the chief medical officer refused to let them try any longer and had Lee removed to his cell. A letter was sent to the then Home Secretary, Sir William Harcourt, who commuted John Lee to life imprisonment, saying it would be inhuman to let the prisoner suffer the thought of imminent death twice. The scaffold, on further inspection, was found to have been reassembled wrongly when it was moved 3 years earlier. John Lee, now known popularly as John Babbacombe Lee, the man they couldn't hang, was released after serving 22 years in prison and went to live with his elderly mother. He married a Devon woman called Jessie August Bullard in January 1909 and fathered 2 children with her, but he abandoned her and the children for another woman in 1911. Jessie ending up in Lambeth Workhouse with one child, John, and another, Evelyn, on the way. Sadly, I couldn't find what happened to them, but he then moved to America with his new lady, a bar girl called Annalena Gibbs. They had a daughter called Evelyn who died suddenly working as a maid in 1933 at the age of 19. John worked as a shipping clerk until he died in March 1945 in Milwaukee, aged 80. Adelina died in 1969. They were never legally married as there was never a divorce from Jessie. Also, the 34 years that they were in the USA, they lived there illegally, their citizenship application never being processed. Well, I think we can agree he wasn't a very nice piece of work, but did he kill Emma Keyes? Well, there have been a few theories put forward. The most popular seems to be our old friend Reginald Gwynne Templar. It has been said by some that he was the lover of Lee's half-sister, Elizabeth, who was pregnant at the time of the murder, and that he was there the night of the murder, murdered Miss Keyes, and John Lee tried to cover it up to make it look like an accident, while Templar escaped. There is also something about a deathbed confession, but to me that's just hearsay. Also, there was the fact that Emma Keyes was in some sort of legal fight with the fishermen of Babbacombe. This could have caused problems for the smugglers in the bay who decided to silence her. Now, we will probably never know, but I can't see it was any advantage for Lee to kill Emma. He had worked for her as a boy, had left to join the Navy but was discharged for health reasons. He turned to crime and was sent to prison as a thief. Nobody would employ him when released. That is apart from Emma Keyes, who had a soft spot for him when he was a boy. It's reported that he told people he didn't like the way she treated him, but what advantage would he get from killing her? What do you think? Let me know. Send me a message on Instagram or Facebook. I always love hearing from you. If you are still subscribed to me here in YouTube land, thank you so much for staying and listening. And if you have never heard me before, I hope you will go over and listen to my other episodes wherever you get your podcasts. So anyway, it's time for a bit of waffle. Sorry for taking so long in bringing a new episode out. I seem to be getting busier as I get older. I still work full time and bring out my ex-old Yellow Belly YouTube channel as often as I can. And my partner Lynn and I have started a new venture, virtual ghost walks, where we put on a bit of a talk and pics on screen of ghosts at a town that you can watch from a comfy chair and a drink in your hand. We recently did our first one at the Sea Airbnb in Chapel St Leonard's near Skegness. It was a bit nerve-wracking, but went down a storm, so hoping to do more of them. If you like ghosts, folklore and legends, please tune in to the Exiled Yellow Belly YouTube channel and let me know what you think. Also, people that do follow me have often heard me talking about Trev. Trev, my best friend. Well, Trev is also fine. He's been complaining that I haven't been bringing out many episodes this year because he's lost his main sleep aid, my voice. Lynn and I have bought a caravan by the sea, something that we've always wanted to do, and I'm hoping the relaxing place will mean I can get more research done and more episodes out. Anyway, it's my turn to cook breakfast and then off on another ghostly adventure. Bye for now, and thank you very much for listening. See you soon.